Greetings everybody, Nick Vanderlaan here. Today is the 14th day of the 8th month on Elohim's Zadok Priest, Qumran, Dead Sea Scroll, Enoch Solar Calendar. It's November 1st, 2018. This video is being broadcasted from Ayin Napa, Cyprus. And this video message is called Zion, Jerusalem, and the Mountain of the House, a search for the true Temple Mount. So this is a continuation, as this video series has turned into a search for the true location of the Temple Mount. Please know that for me and my primary search is seeking the heavenly and millennial temple of which we are part of. So this whole search has been just a byproduct of basically observations during my time while I was in Jerusalem. I have a small interest in biblical archaeology, but again, to emphasize, that is not my passion. Our passion is the heavenly and millennial temple of which we are part of, being in the kingdom of Elohim. So this is a video playlist, guys. If you haven't, this is the first time in the video, I recommend that you watch these videos, the introduction, and then the second video that I did, which was regarding the Psalms of Ascent. So also right now I'm getting a lot of comments. A lot of people have been putting out information that Jerusalem is in Africa, as per some ancient map that they found. But this map actually is probably the oldest map that has the location of Jerusalem. This map is from the 6th century, found in Madaba, Jordan. It's a mosaic floor map. This is the best quality that I can find that fits full screen. You guys can go ahead and take a look for yourself. But it gives you all of the biblical sites. As we know, I think it even has Mount Sinai down here. I'm not so certain. But right here is the Dead Sea. And here in number 1, we have the location for Jerusalem, or also Aelia Capitola is what it became to be known after it was sacked by the Romans in the 1st century. It later became Aelia Capitola. It's right here, okay? So this is not in, Jerusalem is not in Africa, as per Truth Unveiled channel and other channels out there that are putting out this information. It's definitely in the Levant, right there where it says it is, okay, according to the scriptures. So we got that out of the way. Jerusalem is in Israel, in the promised land of Canaan, not all the way down in southern Africa, Zimbabwe, or South Africa, or wherever people have it. So Psalm 122 verse 3, Jerusalem is a city that is compact together. And as you can see, this is the walls of the old city Jerusalem that were rebuilt by King Suleiman the Magnificent back in, I want to say 1583 or something. This isn't the walls of the 1st century Jerusalem or the 2nd or 6th or 8th. This is King Suleiman's walls that he rebuilt. But as you can see, it is compact together when you encompass Zion, when you encompass the city of of what they call the city of David, and then this area right here is the Tropian Valley. If you take it all around this whole area, down here, all the way down into the valley of Hinnom or Gehenna down in here, and all the way up through here, Jerusalem is a city that is compacted, built as a city that is compacted together. In part 2 of this series, I identified only 2 possible ascents. Remember, I took the Psalms of Ascent, and there are Psalms 120 through 134. There's 15 Psalms, and I started reading where David's palace was, and I ascended towards what they now call Mount Zion. And literally, that distance of time of reading that or singing it as you would do, I was huffing and puffing a little bit, but I got up there. It landed me at the top of Mount Zion. And so I'm basically using that as a map to identify the place of Mount Zion. As if the King David's palace was right here, what I did was I started reading here. We took this road and we went all the way up, and it landed here when we got done reading it. Now, if you start here at David's palace here and you ascend here to what they call the Temple Mount now, this is almost level. It's not as much of an incline as going up, so it's not going to take as much time, and you can get there in like 5 minutes. Here it took like a good 12, 14, or 14 minutes to get up here and ascend up, walking at the pace that I walked at, not building a sweat, because you don't want to build a sweat on your way up to the temple. You know, the priests were not supposed to enter the temple sweaty in their service, so you want to have it at the right controllable pace. If the temple was down here, still you can make it up there in that time. I mean, if David's palace was here, maybe it's there. Now, if David came to the pool down here first or at the Gihon and then ascended up, maybe, but I don't know about that. So one ascent, as I said, from the city, what they call now the city of David, goes up to what could be the Roman fortress Antonia that housed 6,000 soldiers, the legion there, and also support staff. The other ascent, as I said, goes up to Mount Zion, where I suspect the true location of the Temple Mount is. In this video right now, we're going to examine the two forests in the city of Jerusalem right here. There's two forests, as you can see. Okay, here's one here, and here's one here. And to determine the true site of the Temple Mount. In addition, we're going to identify other key characteristics in order to properly identify the site, the temple site, which is the site of Ornan, or King Araunah of the Jebusites, his threshing floor, where that would have been. So again, this is an artist rendition of Jerusalem or of Zion, okay? And as you can see, these mountains here, and they're grouped together. They that trust in Yahweh shall be as Mount Zion, which cannot be removed but abideth forever. As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so Yahweh is round about his people from henceforth forever. Yahweh, okay, is around his people. So around the mountains, if you can see how the artist did it, there's a valley here and there's a valley here. There's also a valley that goes through here, but it doesn't, it stops, I think. So this is as the mountains that are all around Jerusalem, right? Remember, Jerusalem, Psalm 122, verse 3, is a city is built as a city that is compact together. And here you have all these hills compact together. Psalm 76 verse 2, in Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. So the Salem was where the tabernacle would have been, right here, what they call the Ophel in this picture, and his dwelling place would have been in Zion. And notice Zion's elevation is 2,529 feet. Mount Moriah, where the temple, what they call the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock is, or Haram al-Sharif, is the height point there is 2,440 feet. Okay, then you have Besetha, which is 2,529 feet, all the way, which is the same height as Zion, all the way here in the back. But this is compact together. This is Jerusalem. This is the ancient city. Okay, so here's a couple of other maps. Okay, as I said, as the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so Yahweh is round about his people from henceforth, even forever. So here you can see the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is the Kidron Valley. Now you have the valley of Hinnom, and now you have, they call this the Gihon, the valley of Gihon, but I don't know about that. I think the Gihon spring is right here. That's one ancient map. This is another ancient map. Valley of Hinnom right here. This is this would be the Kidron Valley, and this is the valley of Jehoshaphat here. But as you can see, the mountains are all around Jerusalem. The mountains are all around Jerusalem. So we know where Jerusalem is. It's right here. Okay, so there are 4 holy places of Yahweh, and he prefers mountaintops. Okay, Jubilees chapter 4, verse 26. For Yahweh has 4 places on the earth, the Garden of Eden, and the Mount of the East, which is Mount Lubar of Ararat, according to Jubilees 5:28. So the ark did not rest on Mount Ararat, but on Mount Lubar of Ararat. Okay, and I believe the God Channel has put some good information out on the Garden of Eden and also on Mount Lubar. There's some other things that I disagree with them on, but I don't disagree with them on our Creator, and I recommend that channel, the God Channel. They're putting out a lot of good information. And this mountain which thou art this day, Mount Sinai. So when I read this, I was like, wow. And this mountain which thou art this day, this is Mount Sinai. This is where Yahweh gave the commandments to Moses and all the other writings that had to be recorded regarding creation up to his time. And, you know, so I believe Jubilees could be a sign. This is obviously inspired text, and it was given, it's a writing of Moses, it appears. And Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in the new creation for a sanctification on the earth. So Mount Zion hasn't had, which will be sanctified in the new creation for a sanctification on the earth. Through it, the earth will be sanctified from all its guilt and its uncleanliness throughout the generations of the world. So if you notice in the four holy places, we have the Garden of Eden, which could be a huge mountain, okay? The mountain of the east, which is Mount Lubar. We have Mount Sinai, and we have Mount Zion. 4. We do not have Mount Moriah listed, if you notice this, okay? But we're going to get into the understanding of what Mount Moriah could be. So, Exodus 19:20, and Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai, and on the top of the mount, and Yahweh called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. So here we see mountaintop, mountaintop. Okay, Yahweh likes mountaintops, I believe. Jubilees 5 verses 28. And the ark, Noah's ark, went and rested on the top of Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. Okay, that's in Jubilees 5:28. Again, on the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain. So, with that being said, I believe that Mount Zion is going to be on the top of the mountain. And here we have a couple of pictures of Mount Sinai scorched on the top of the mountaintop right here. As you can see on the top of this mountain, scorched at the top. And this is just a funky artist rendition I snatched off the internet of the ark of Noah's Ark sitting on top of a mountain. And please note that Satan likes to copy and make counterfeits of Yahweh's things, and he does it with pagan high places. So high places are also on the tops of the mountains. So please remember, high places are on the tops of mountains, and they are counterfeits of Yahweh. And the last thing I want to say is that when Noah, when the ark rested, it says that he went, in Jubilees, it says he went and made atonement after the ark had rested. And that's important. Atonement was made on top of a mountain. Okay? So, here is a map. I forget what type of map this is called, with the layerings of the elevations. All right? A topographic map, I should say. And so, here's what they call Mount Moriah. Now, that's not my labeling. This is a graphic that I pulled. Okay, Kidron Valley is here. The Gihon Spring here. This is what the Eastern Hill, they call this the City of David. Here's the Tropian Valley. And then here's Mount Zion and the Southwestern Hill, what they call. And so Mount Zion is over here, and this is the Southwestern Hill right here, and this is the Northwestern Hill, according to whoever made this map. And then this is the Hinnom Valley, I believe, is right here, and then this is a different valley right here. I don't know the name of that valley, but I believe this is the Hinnom Valley down here, running from west to east, sloping down this way. As you can see in Mount Zion, when you come down here, there's a huge drop of elevation from 765 meters down to 615 meters. It's a 115 meter drop, so it's a really high mountain, like 500 feet up in the air. So, the high place, we talked about the high place. Mount Moriah, right here at the top of Mount Moriah, is 743 meters. Mount Zion, right here, is 765 meters. The southwestern hill, or also part of Mount Zion, right here, what I believe is also part of Mount Zion, the height here is 765 meters. And as you can see, look how big and wide these lines are. It's really flat up top, and I'll show you some pictures of that. So Mount Zion is 22 to 30 meters, which is either 72 feet or 98 feet, almost 100 feet higher than what they call Mount Moriah, where the Temple Mount is. So Mount Zion, I believe, is the high place of Jerusalem. And here you can see, right here, this is a map someone else did that I just took off to show you. Well, it's interesting that this was filled in. They call this area filled in. This is the natural bedrock of the City of David. But here you can see behind this mountain right here. This is what they call Mount Moriah. And they labeled this the Temple Mount, and this is where the temple would go. They put Herod's palace, or the citadel, way up here. I actually believe that up here in this area is where the Temple Mount actually was. And we're going to get into this in these slides coming up. But as you can see, there's a huge height difference between what they call Mount Moriah, which is what they call the Temple Mount, which is Haram al-Sharif, compared to what they call now Mount Zion. So as I said, Mount Zion, I believe, is to be the high place. So Moriah, is it Moriah a name or description? Because as I said, it's not listed in the 4 places of Yahweh, okay, here on earth. Genesis 2:22:2, and he said, Yahweh, to Abraham, take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. So he said, get thee into the land of Moriah. This isn't speaking of Mount Moriah. Now we will see Mount Moriah mentioned right here below. In 2 Chronicles 3:1, then Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where Yahweh appeared unto David his father, okay, and that appearance in the place that David had appeared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Now Ornan the Jebusite, that was one of his names. It was also Aruna, and he was the king of the Jebusites. Okay, as you can read, I believe, in chapter 5 of 1 Chronicles. So this is where I believe, no, not first of 2 Kings chapter 5, I believe. I'm not 100% certain, but you can look that up. So we want to locate the threshing floor of Ornan, or King Aranu of the Jebusites. Because where that is where the Temple Mount will be. Moriah, again, it's only used twice, I believe. Here in 2 Chronicles, here in Genesis 22. Here it's the land of Moriah. Here it's called Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah means chosen by Yah. Okay, that's actually what it means, chosen by Yah. Moriah means chosen by Yah. And so that's all the information that we have on this site as far as what this means. Now maybe we can get into what the pictograph Hebrew, maybe that will help us, give us some more clues on more about this site. Okay, again, I lean that it's to what they call Mount Zion, not to the Temple Mount. I might be mistaken, but I'm providing a lot of evidence to share with you guys out there that why I believe so. So here's a picture of Jerusalem, the southern part of Jerusalem, from the Mount of Olives, looking west. So we're east, looking west. Mount Zion, the Kidron. We have Mount Zion right here. This is Mount Zion. Okay, it's further in the distance. We have the Kidron Valley, which is right below here. We have the city of David, which is these buildings right here going down. Okay, then we have the southern wall right here of Fortress Antonia. It goes flat like right here, what they call the Temple Mount. And Mount Zion is higher, as you can see, and I'm going to go to another picture. It's, even though it's further away in the distance, it's higher elevation point than the Temple Mount. Here's another picture, as you can see, of Mount Zion. It's way up here, and it's higher elevation than the Temple Mount. The mount goes like this, straight down, then it goes down, then it goes up, and then it comes zigzags and up to Mount Zion. Mount Zion is elevated above the temple, what they call the Temple Mount, which I believe to be Fortress Antonia, and I'll be providing some evidence with that. So on top of Mount Zion, so here's that part. As you can see, look at the slope going up, and as you saw when I was walking up the street, my ascent up, you could see my stick, or you could see the incline that I went on, and here's an example of the incline right there. And on top of Mount Zion, which is interesting, sits the Catholic Benedictine Order of the Jesuits, Dormition Abbey. So this is Dormition Abbey. Also up here is the Cenacle, which is the false upper room. They call the Cenacle the upper room. And also up here is the Tomb of David, which is a 12th century tradition. And that Tomb of David, it's a 12th century tradition, because up here on the top also was the Mosque of David. And I'll share some information with you about that. So here's the Abbey of Dormition, and you can read about it here, and you can read all about that here on that. But a monastic order known as Abbey of Our Lady okay, of Mount Zion. Our Lady of Mount Zion. They put that here. So that's nothing but Asherah worship. Okay, it's still going on. So Our Lady of Mount Zion, as you can see here, was right here, and you can see that this was absorbed into the Jesuit order in 1617. But the lady, okay, that's Asherah worship. Okay, we know about Asherah poles and Baal shafts. It's the same thing. And here you can read about the cenacle. They call this the upper room, but it's not the upper room. Okay, and here's pictures of what the Franciscans purchased. The officials in 1332, the Franciscans, the official representatives of the Roman Catholic Church in the holy places, moved their headquarters to the cenacle, having acquired it in 1332 from Sultan and Nasir Muhammad for 30,000 ducats of gold. Okay, this is according to Wikipedia. Here's a picture of what this mosque looked like. So they purchased this mosque. Now, when you purchase a mosque, you cannot tear down a mosque. I think that's like sacrilegious according to Islam. And then this is an artist's rendition, but this is an actual photograph. And look at all these tombs up here. Everybody wanted to be buried up here. And now there's buildings all over those tombs. Again, this is the cenacle that was purchased. It was part of this tomb of David at the cenacle in Jerusalem. And this is also the Mosque of David. This is what's called the Mosque of David. All right, it's not talked about a lot. Now this minaret is still there. And look at the shape of that minaret. It's very similar as to the shape of the bell tower of this Dormition Abbey. You notice the shape? It looks like a phallic symbol. It looks like Baal shaft or an Asherah pole. So Micah 3, I want to make sure, okay. Micah 3 verses 12. Therefore shall Zion for your sake, this is a prophecy regarding what would happen to Mount Zion. Therefore Zion for your sake shall be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. So to become a high place of a forest, you have to have trees, and then you have to have your Asherah pole or your Baal shaft, and then also besides that, you have to be offering sacrifice. And we're going to get into that sacrifice. But this is what would happen to the mountain of the house. It would become a high place of the forest. So again, you would have to have sacrifice. You have to have an idol, okay? This Baal shaft right here, or right here, you can barely see it, but this minaret right here. And then it was going to become like the high places of the forest. And the high places of that they would worship at would be the highest point in the geographical area. So Solomon, when he got all the pagan wives all around Jerusalem, remember it says that Jerusalem is the mountains surround Jerusalem. On all the other high places surrounding Jerusalem, it says, I don't have the verse, but you can look it up, Solomon built high places to the pagan gods of all the wives that he took. Okay, this is an old picture of Mount Zion again from the 1800s. As you can see it here, it comes here, and then it slopes and it just drops way down over here, and it just drops down, and it drops down, what, like 500 feet. So it's very substantial in size. And then right here is where the Mosque of David was, that was purchased as the cenacle, and it's all this area has become built upon. But as you can see, this is a field, this is a field, this is a big field. These are all fields cut away here. These are all fields. Here's some orchards. Up here is fields, okay? So this is why I believe that this site is the prophetic site, that Micah 3:12. This is a fulfillment of Micah 3:12. Look at all of the fields of Mount Zion that was plowed. It was all plowable here, okay? All down around here as well. So in spring of this year, it was either around the time of Passover or Shavuot, right? And Shavuot happened right before summer. I found wild, either wheat or barley. It was wild barley or wild wheat. I don't know what it was. I didn't take a sample. I should have. I might have taken a picture of it on my cell phone, but it was growing up here on the top of Mount Zion, and it was growing wild up here. And I was like, wow, there's wheat or barley up here. And I thought that was interesting because it said Zion would be plowed like a field. Now, maybe next year, Yahweh willing, if I go back next year, I'll be able to document this further, or I might have it on my cell phone, but my cell phone has been dead since around that time, so I don't have that documentation. But you need to have 2 or 3 witnesses, so don't pass this on. You could say it's believed Nick Van der Laan found wheat or barley wildly growing up here, which I believe I might have documented, but others can go back and see. And it was in the cracks up here, or in various areas up here top of the mountain, growing wild. I also found other wild barley growing over I definitely found wild barley growing over across the way in Abu Tur, which is the Mount of Evil Council, they call it, over in this, across the Gihon Valley up here. So this is the Cynical, the false upper room right here. Again, this is Dormition Abbey, the Franciscan monastery. This is what they attribute to King David's tomb right here. And then this, again, is Mount Zion, this whole area here, and you're going to see how flat it is. Now, I talked about there has to be sacrifice. For it to become like a high place, there has to be sacrifice, and there has to be pagan worship going on. And like I said, the Catholics are up there. And what do you have here? This is literally Pope Francis right here. These are the same 2 events, same event, 2 different photos, one of a close-up, one of a bigger one, so you can see all the audience that was here. There's another picture of another guy wearing a kippah, like a Jewish guy wearing a kippah over here. But he came in here and they performed their mass. And you know their mass is a reoccurring sacrifice. It's the pagan religion. And they own that area. And here you have Pope John Paul II that was doing the same thing in the same room, the Cynical, what they call the upper room, but it's not the upper room. The upper room, I believe, is in this area, and other people believe it as well. But this is what's going on. This is, I believe, to be a fulfillment of the prophecy of Micah 3:2, that will become like a high place because they're doing their pagan sacrifices up here. Their Eucharist, okay? Their transubstantiation Eucharist, the continuing sacrifice or re-sacrifice of their, what is it, Ishtar and whatever Ishtar's son was, the weeping for Tammuz. Okay, so their pagan mystery religion is being practiced up here on the top of actual Mount Zion. So this is fulfilling the high place prophecy of Micah 3:2, pagan sacrifice. Again, I said high places need an Asherah pole or a Baal shaft, which is a erected male phallic symbol. Here you have Dormition Abbey, their bell tower, and it's telling Roman time. So here's the bell tower in the shape of a male erected phallic symbol, and here you have it again with also the minaret of the mosque that was there from the 1300s, I believe. Okay, so to be fair, okay, I have to say Haram al-Sharif, or what they call the Temple Mount, has also become a forest, as you can see. Okay, it might also be considered a high place because you have the Dome of the Rock, or Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there is a minaret right here. Okay, I think there's another minaret somewhere right here. So it has a couple of minarets. But again, it's not the highest place in Jerusalem, which is a city compact together. Also, Haram al-Sharif, to my best knowledge, has not been plowed as a field. So if that's the case, it would disqualify it from fulfilling Micah 3:12, but it's also not the highest place. Another big problem is that Haram al-Sharif, or Temple Mount, is in the shape of an almost identical size of other Roman legion fortresses. So it's a Roman fortress of a legion. It's in the same, almost the same size of one. Not the exact same shape, but the same size. This is a trapezoid. Reason being, very well could be that it is Fortress Antonia. That's the reason why. That this, what you see here, is the leftover of Fortress Antonia, as I believe Dr. Ernest Martin had correctly identified this. So here, if you Google search for Roman fortress legions, you'll get various images of renditions of these fortresses. These are fortresses of Roman legion fortresses found in Europe. And you can see they're all either rectangular like this, or almost like a trapezoid like right here. This is rectangular. and this one appears to be a trapezoid as well. Same shape as this right here, and this is not a bird's eye view, but this is a trapezoid as well. So I thought that this is quite a good tell for that. Now, here's some old pictures that I could find of the Dome of the Rock or and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. You have a whole bunch of houses all here. There are some areas up here that had trees, but this is on a slope. Could this have been a field at one point, plowed as a field? It could have, but you see a lot of Roman gateways that are left here headed to this area. So I don't know exactly, we don't know the date of these Roman arches that were put here for this area. A lot of people have associated this with the Temple of Jupiter up here prior to it becoming the Dome of the Rock. So this is a Temple Mount rendition of Dr. Ernest L. Martin, according to his accounts of Flavius Josephus, which I think, you know, you can't receive the works. He was one eyewitness. He was a Talmudic Essene Jew, and also he was a paid historian of the Roman Empire. So Dr. Ernest Martin, Bob Cornuke, and Don Esposito appear to be wrong, and I'm going to explain why. Their theory is based on only one eyewitness account. So Bob Cornuke, he's basically taken Dr. Ernest Martin's work. He has given him, you know, cited his work earlier on. He doesn't do as much now, but he's repurposed his work and now he repackages it, I guess you would say. He tried to add to it to go out to sell his books or whatever he has to do. But Bob Cornuke's work is not original, just like his work on Mount Sinai was not original. He got that from Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt had that correct. A lot of other things that Ron Wyatt I don't think he had correct, which maybe I'll prove later on, maybe if I have time to do that. And then Don Esposito has taken the work of Dr. Ernest Martin. But I think their theory, Dr. Martin's theory, is based on only one eyewitness account when Torah requires two or three. Again, I explained why Josephus was an Essene, not of the righteous Zadok priests where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found at Qumran. I'm always going to correct myself. Earlier on in my videos, I said Dead Sea Scrolls and Qumran was Essene, but they were not. Essene is a Gnostic sect of Talmudic Judaism, which was, and their headquarters was down in En-Gedi on the Dead Sea, but 35 kilometers south. Qumran was of the righteous Zadok priests, where more than likely John the Baptist's headquarters was. Okay, again, Josephus was on the Roman payroll, historian, and there's a benefit to hide the location of the temple, of the low temple, by providing a false location. And also, you can't put a first temple. Okay, the second temple was built on top of the ruins of the first temple on the same site. Okay, but so this temple, if it was right here, if you go all the way down to the bottom of this, there are first temple era buildings. It's not flat bedrock. So you can't put a first temple, you can't put a second temple on top of a first temple ruins. And the first temple ruins has to be on the bedrock area. It can't be on other first temple area buildings. And so therefore, this isn't the site of the temple. Okay, it has to be in another location. And again, Brother Leland Jones and I talked this over. We both agreed on the same thing. He had this and I already had that same thought. So hallelujah. So this person said, Josephus left a comment in my last video. Josephus is no longer a credible eyewitness, historical resource, question mark. He was an Essene and was hired out by the Romans. So you're calling Josephus a liar and a deceiver. Okay, so my question is, first of all, he was an Essene. You don't even know what an Essene is. You're ignorant like I was, you know, 8 months ago or whatever, or 5 months ago, up to the point when I was under the assumption, the false assumption that the Essenes were righteous, was a righteous sect. It was a Gnostic sect of Talmudic Judaism before the Talmud was printed. Okay, the oral Torah, they adhered to the royal Torah. So my question, Ron Clark, is when was Josephus ever a credible witness, as you need a second or third witness to corroborate his testimony? Christian scholars have ignorantly received Josephus's history because they either don't know or follow or live the Torah. You have to have 2 or 3 witnesses to this, okay, or physical evidence which stands alone. All right, so I don't believe, you know, who's to say Josephus was credible, right? So this is a website of a guy named Lean Rittmeyer who has disproven Dr. Martin and now Bob Cornuke and their writings based on Josephus that they omitted. So Dr. Ernest Martin that they omitted. So Dr. Ernest Martin used the writings of Josephus. Bob Cornuke has now taken Dr. Ernest Martin's work and looked like he added to it, but they omit the writings of Josephus. And this guy, Lean Rittmeyer, has done a lot of work. He thinks that the temple was here. I'll have to take a look at his work, but right now I disagree with him. But he's done a lot of good work disproving them based on Dr. Ernest Martin and Bob Cornuke use the writings of Josephus, and this guy uses all the writings of Josephus to disprove them that they omitted from their work. So Josephus and Bob Cornuke and Ernest Martin's temple site does not line up with the scriptures. If this be the city of Jebus, this is the Jebusite city of Jebus right here, right here. This is Bob Cornuke's graphic right here, I believe. Why would King David, my question is, why would King David need to purchase land inside the city of Jebus, which he had already captured? So if the Temple Mount is right here where Bob Cornuke, I believe, identified it, or Dr. Ernest Martin also identified it, why would, and if David captured this whole city that was right here, his men captured it, and they captured it by slaughtering a lot of the people in here, it said, I believe in 2 Kings, I want to say, or 2 Samuel, chapter 5. Why would he then need to repurchase the land that he already had? And then also it says in the account that David lifted up his eyes. So if his palace was here and he lifted up his eyes, which means he looked up. And also it says that David went up as we will read. Why is he going, if the temple is up here, if his palace is up here, why is he going here? If his palace is here, okay, come on. All right, why would he repurchase the land? It doesn't make any sense that the temple was in the city of David. So I had this false assumption many months ago, and as well, because I believe their work, but when I looked into it, it's this. So test all things, guys. Don't even take what I'm sharing with you for fact, unless it's fact. The facts are there, and plus myself, you know, I haven't said 100% that it's here in Mount Zion, but I strongly lead that's the way. Okay, so you can read 2 Chronicles 21. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of Yahweh stand between the earth and the heaven, and having drawn a sword in his hand, stretched over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, fell upon their faces. And David said unto Elohim, It is not I that I commanded the people to be numbered, even so that is I have sinned and done evil indeed. But as for these sheep, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, O Yahweh, my Elohim, be on me and on my father's house, but not on thy people, that they should be plagued. And the angel of Yahweh commanded Gad to say to David that David should go up and set up an altar unto Yahweh in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And David went up at the saying of Gad, which he spoke in the name of Yahweh. And Ornan turned back and saw the angel, and his 4 sons with him hid themselves. Now Ornan was threshing winter wheat. He's threshing wheat. I believe this is winter wheat, and I proved it. But again, this image is attributed to Bob Cornuke. The only two places to go up from David's temple area, and here's the Gihon, and we know that Gad the seer had a vision on the Gihon, so this is where David would have been in this strong fortress. The only two places to go up, you could go up here, which is now Fortress Antonia, or you can go up from this area here and go up this way to the west and up to Mount Zion. So on that guy's Rittmeyer's website, again, he believes that Fortress Antonia, he believes that the Temple Mount is the where they say it is now. But this is how Bob Cornuke shows. This person right here, Paul Myers, is accusing Bob Cornuke of omitting that he left out Mount Moriah. You can read about this here. Then Solomon began to build. This is taken from Bob Cornuke's book, 2 Chronicles 3 verse 1. In his book, it says that Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, in the place that David prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. So what is the missing words in this verse, and why did he leave them out? And so it looks like in Mount Moriah was left out, okay, where the Lord appeared unto David his father. So, or where Yahweh appeared unto David his father. So this guy is claiming that Bob Cornuke left out this information and this information. I don't have Bob Cornuke's book, but if somebody out there, if you can please verify that. That would be great. Okay, so I would like you, if you can verify this, according to Bob Cornick, this was left out because they are claiming that Mount Moriah is the Temple Mount, and I don't think so. I think Mount Moriah is the highest point. Okay, and here's my biblical anniversary spreadsheet, and according to Gad the seer in chapter 7, you can read all about the same account of David and Israel's sin of counting. Israel wanted to be counted, but David was the one that actually went through with the sin of counting and the census and everything else. And you can read about the account, and it was wheat. He was threshing wheat. And I believe that there's information in here that gives us that it's the 20th day of the 9th month. So they must have been threshing winter wheat, possibly. That's why I believe it was winter wheat. But I recommend that you check out Gad the Seer. I'll put a link, I think, in the description for a link to a public or a PDF that's been as public. So this person, Randall Stewart, in his 2 Samuel, David ascent to the throne spreadsheet thing he did, or PowerPoint presentation, he calls all of this area, as you see, the city of David, which is the city of David would have been here. There would have been a small valley here. And this is also the Tropian Valley, and which is called the Tropian Valley. It would have also included this side of the Tropian Valley, that this is the city of David. So here is a map of what I did here. This is we're looking for a possible location of the angel of Yahweh. So what I have here, this in this blue is what you saw in that previous slide, the city of David according to Randall Stewart, right here. And I would agree with them possibly, okay? Then you have, in the green, you have, okay, so this is David looking up from his palace. So this is the location of David's palace looking up. The approximate location of Ornan's threshing floor, I believe, is here on the top of Mount Zion somewhere. Other people have it here, where on this mountain. We'll take a look at that later. So the angel of Yahweh standing next to Ornan's threshing floor between heaven and the earth. So he was standing in the sky somewhere above it, and I put that here. So for Ornan to look backwards, Ornan was here. This mountain, because it's flat up here, to look back, it was there. I believe Ornan was over here, so the angel of Yahweh was here somewhere. The threshing floor was somewhere within this area around here. And it says the angel of Yahweh's sword stretched over Jerusalem. So if the angel of Yahweh was standing here, his sword would have stretched all over ancient Jerusalem right here. This area right here, his sword would have stretched over this area of Jerusalem if he was standing here on Ornan's threshing floor this way. The only other way, he would have been standing over here, and his sword would have been this way. It says that he looked back. I haven't looked at the word Ornan looked back. I don't know what the word in the Greek or in the Hebrew. We could take a look at that. So, in my last video, when I did the ascent at the beginning of the video, I'm standing right here in front, in the location of David's palace. Actually, right here on this road, on this side is the location of David's palace. Down here to the left of the screen and down is the Gihon Spring and other part of David's palace. This is what they call the city of David, what they call it the city of David. And I am looking up, and here you could see Dormition Abbey. There's the bell tower right here on top of Mount Zion. So Yahweh would have been, the angel of Yahweh would have been standing like right here, and David would have looked up right here to see the angel of Yahweh standing above here. So I thought that this was a pretty good picture to give you an idea of what David saw when he looked up. The angel of Yahweh would have been somewhere up here. This is the top of Mount Zion right here. And so this is a possible vantage point of David when he saw the angel of Yahweh from the palace. Okay, and this picture is, and this video is the previous video in this series that you can take a look at. So this is the Temple Mount or Fortress Antonia topography, what they call Mount Moriah. This is that guy Rittmeyer's work right here. he says the mountain was like this, and it's look at the slope on the east side and on the west side. So it's a really pointed mountain, and there's not a lot of there's that big rock up here, and he said the threshing floor would have been over here. So here's someone else's work that I took. This is the foundation around this mountain that was built here, and this is how they said that it was. And there's a bunch of water cisterns all in this mountain. The Temple Mount Square, they said it was right here. This is another rendition of it and how it was laid out. Again, I disagree. They said Fortress Antonia was this little tiny fort over here. 6,000 people plus support staff cannot fit in this little tiny fortress over here, right here on the northwest corner of this place. That's ridiculous. Okay. We already talked about the footprint is almost in the identical shape of all the other footprints of Roman legion fortresses. And as you can see, this has the mountain, this going north to south. He has it going, Rittmeyer has it going east to west, that long part here, where he attributes to be the threshing floor. Now, it could be here, but I highly doubt it. This is the shape of a Roman fortress. It's not the highest place. And we'll go ahead and look at other things to I'll attempt to disprove that. But again, I don't believe this to be the case. Here's what they call the foundation stone, or even ha-shatikya, in the dome of the rock. So this is the big rock, and the height of this stone is approximately 22 feet high above the surface level of this area. So this dome of the rock was built basically around this stone right here. So Mount Zion, what I presume to be the true location that I lean right now, is flat up top. Look how flat this area is. It's a big table up top, not like this little peak up here that's very small square footage of flat area. Even if you were to level it out here, and they tried to level it out and fill it in and do all of that to create this platform, but I kind of disagree. We'll take a look. Again, Mount Zion up top is really flat, 773 to 765. That's only a few meters, 8 meters of a slope. That's nothing. That's 19 feet of a slope between the highest point of the northern part of Mount Zion to the southern point of Mount Zion. This whole area right here is a huge natural platform, unlike that pointed platform of what they call Mount Moriah. Okay, this is a sizable mountain. Okay, it doesn't appear that it can be moved. It's just look at the drop and the descent. Again, 765 down to 615. It's over 150 meters high in this valley. It's a very significant looking mountain when you come in and you appear it. So up top, this is one of the highest parts of Mount Zion. They have a basketball court. It's all flat up here. I found wild barley growing over here, not here in the dirt, but over here in the cracks and the crevices. And as I walked down these stairs over here, these rocks that are here, there's a caverns underneath it, and over here is where they believe. It's attributed to the Greek Orthodox. The Greek Orthodox Church has control over it, and it goes down into the mountain, down, and there's carvings cut out, and we'll link to it, but a lot of people believe that to be the true upper room. And then on this other side of the wall is another flat area. So this is a huge flat space, and here is this area, and it's a huge soccer field. So you have a basketball court, you have more area up here, it's all flat, 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 and then on the other side of the wall, it drops about 2 meters, and this wall height is about 2 meters, and now you have, this is a soccer goal, a huge soccer field, and again, here is that Asherah pole, or the bell tower of the Jesuit, Franciscan, or Benedictine, Jesuit, Catholic Church. Okay, they're pagan Asherah pole. So here is a map, and this is my graphics that I put on here. We're going to discuss some interesting places, okay? First of all, if this is the Temple Mount, okay, and this is the city of David, all right? right here, and the palace was over here. Uh, if the Temple Mount was actually the Temple Mount, and the temple sacrificed all the blood runoff or whatever it was that had to be run off in the water and come down here, the stench would have been really bad. Now, all the royal gardens were here. All the royal gardens were in this valley right here, in the Kidron Valley. So that doesn't make any sense. The stench of that would be horrific, to have to smell that here, all of that here in your palace. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Okay, I believe, okay, so I don't think that this, what they call the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, is the Temple Mount. Okay, this green sign right here is what they call the Mikvah Park. And I went through this park with my wife and my children right before we left. I don't think that these are mikvahs. These are all looking like cisterns. These are more cisterns than mikvahs. And what I want to share, so I don't think that they recognize this site in good faith. As you walk along this street, all along from right about here, all along the wall on the outside are mikvahs from first temple era, mikvahs that are still here, carved into the rock. And these are real mikvahs, but there's no park saying these are mikvahs, this is Mikvah Park. They try to use these mikvahs to validate this being the Temple Mount. Again, I think it's wrong, and I can actually prove it. I think I could actually prove that. So these are real mikvahs. As you are ascending up, there are mikvahs on the way as you ascend up. These I don't believe to be, all of them to be mikvahs. There are more cisterns than mikvahs. We'll take a look at that later, okay? So this is the area, I believe, of where, this is the city of David, they call it now. This actually, this purple line is an extension of the city of David. This is the Tropian Valley, and it could have came all the way up through here. This could have been the city of David. This would have been the strong fortress right here of the Jebusites. And so as you come up here, this area right here is being currently excavated by University of North Carolina, Charlotte, or University of Charlotte, and they found a cup here with inscribed writings of the Qumran sect, of the Zadok priests of Qumran. Up here is that room. Here's the field that I just showed you. This is where the basketball court is right here. This is that big field on this top side. On the bottom side that I went over in green down here, this right here is the soccer field. This is the basketball court. This is all this other part. It's all flat. This whole area is flat. When I read the Psalm of Ascents, starting here where David's palace would have been, and came up here and walked up, I stopped right here. Now my cadence could have been off a little bit. It could have been higher, but I ascended. And Psalms 120 to 134, when you read it in that ascent, it leads you literally right here to the top of this area. And it led me up to where Dormition Abbey is. It led me up to where the Cenacle is. It led me up to where they attribute the Mosque of David was, or the Tomb of David. What's interesting right here, this little thing right here, that goes down into the ground of this huge mountain, and this is where they believe to be the upper room was. There is a mikvah here that's associated with King David right here. That's a first century, first temple era mikvah right here. And this is the I met a man who owns a small piece of property right next to where I believe to be the upper room. And there's an area up here attributed to the Essenes, or they call it the Essenes, but it's really the righteous Zadok priests of Qumran. And literally this area, when you stand right here, I've had previous videos, and you look out as you face this way, it looks down this Kidron Valley, or the Wadi Valley Kidron, and it takes you out to the Dead Sea. So you can literally see where the headquarters, the Dead Sea headquarters of the Zadok priests would have been from their property here on Mount Zion that crosses the street. And there's a cutouts in here. So this man that owns this area up here, Mr. Boaz, his first name is Boaz. He let me look into his small little area that he has right here. He said that this is Mount Zion, and he said that there's a first temple gate right here that's called the Dung Gate, and it's somewhere here on the south side of Mount Zion, and it leads actually down into the Valley of Hinnom or Gehinnom right here. So this area right here is believed to be associated with King Herod, and this area is a parking lot, and some people associate this area right here is where the temple could have been. Some people say it could have been here. Maybe it could have been here. Maybe it could have been here. Maybe it could have been here. But what is Zadok priest's a cup from the Zadok priest doing in this site here? This site is also attributed to the Zadok priest. Why are they up here if the temple is way over here? And okay, that makes no sense to me. They would want to be next to the temple. Okay, and Herod would want to be next to the temple. And this is the tomb of Herod. It's right here, and I think that it's actually pointed towards here. We're going to need a land surveyor to survey it, but it's actually pointed towards here. Now, why would Herod build a family tomb for his family pointing to his palace? It makes no sense. He knew the customs of the Jews, even though he was an Edomite. Okay, he would have it pointed to the temple. Everything would face the temple. So more than likely, the tomb of Herod's family member would point to the temple. There's also a first century synagogue I saw in a video. I can't verify that somewhere here, and they say that the Torah niche is pointed this way. So where these would intersect, I believe these 2 points, we can triangulate using these 2 points to triangulate, just like you would a cell phone, where these 2 points intersect. If it's facing this way and this site facing this way, where they intersect would be where the X marks the spot. That would be where the temple location would have been, I believe, but that would require a land surveyor, and I just don't have those skills. So I believe this to be the Hinnom Valley, and this is where they would have the children pass through the fire. This is where all the garbage would be taken and burnt, possibly way down here. The stench would go out this way, and all of the stench of all of the refuse would flow here and out. It doesn't make any sense that it would flow down here past this city and the stench be going on down here. This is the Hinnom Valley. This is where I believe, the blood would have probably been washed out of, possibly. Okay, so as I said in my last video, there's 2 ascents from what they now call the city of David, where they believe the palace of David was Mount Zion and Haram al-Sharif, which is where the Dome of the Rock is and where Al-Aqsa Mosque is. So in regards to the prophecy of Micah 3:2, both places can be considered forests. Both places can be considered high places. Both places also could have been plowed as a field, though I doubt Haram al-Sharif, or what they call the Temple Mount, is, but it's possible over the last millennia. But I strongly believe Mount Zion was plowed as a field, as I found wild barley or wild wheat there. I lean to believe Mount Zion fits the location of the Temple Mount, as it definitely fits the length of the reading or singing of Psalms 120 through 134, which are the Psalms of Ascent, as I've proven from my previous video. In my next video on the topic of the true Temple Mount, I will be presenting video documentation of a stone from what I believe is the Roman fortress Antonia. This stone matches all the stones of the other first century stones of Fortress Antonia or Haram al-Sharif that are still in place. So this stone, the way that the stone is cut, it matches the other stones. The only difference is that this stone that I documented has the engraving on it, which has an engraving on it, which I actually believe to be a Roman standard. Okay, and I've never heard anybody mention this stone or talk about the engraving of this stone. This stone is in plain sight of a highly trafficked area around the Temple Mount, and it looks like it was a stone that was fallen down and then repurposed. I believe this piece of evidence to prove that this is a Roman fortress. And also in a future video, I plan to prove that Mount Zion, because it's a city builded unto itself, it's compacted together. I believe Mount Zion is synonymous with the city of David, which is synonymous with Jerusalem. And this whole area here. So Boaz actually believed that this was part of the city of David as well. David's palace would have been here, and it would have been up here. Other people I've heard say that this also was part of the ancient city of Jebus as well. I'll be looking more into this matter. I mean, I haven't made a full thing about that, but I'm going to be going through the scriptures trying to prove that all this area here is Mount that Mount Zion, the city of David, and Jerusalem. They're all synonymous because it's a city that's compact together. So right here, the last thing I want, this is the stone. I'll be showing the video footage, but this stone, I believe, came off of the what they call the Temple Mount, and it was repurposed with other stones by, in the 8th century or earlier or after. But as you can see, this wreath right here is a Roman part of what I believe to be a Roman standard. And this wreath was not glued on or attached on. It was chiseled in this rock and in this stone. And here's a close-up of it. And as you can clearly see, this is a wreath. And you can clearly see there was something here, and there was something here that broken off, and it's in the form of a quadrant, and that these are flowers here. And I believe this to be proof that what they call the Temple Mount now was actually Fortress Antonia. There is no way the Jews, maybe they would, but they would allow them to have this insignia, even though there's no picture of an eagle or anything else on their building. This is the stamp of Rome, of the Roman Empire, and there's also continuation stone, and I'll be showing you the video footage of this in my next video, but I believe that this is the fingerprint, right? The fingerprint that you would put on their building on the outside, that this is the Roman fortress, that this decorative, again, it would have been towards the top of the building, of the topper wall of the buildings that were pushed over when they destroyed their own fortress. This would have been it, and I'll be looking at this piece of evidence to support my claim or theory, again, that other people have had, that the modern Temple Mount, or what they call Mount Moriah now, Haram El Sharif, was really Fortress Antonia. So I hope you enjoy this video and this series. I always look forward to the comments. Again, we're not seeking the earthly temple here. It's good to know. It's just edifying things. But the true pursuit is the heavenly temple. The temple that we are a part of. We are the temple of the living Elohim. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things shall be added unto you. And so, again, this is just a byproduct of observation. I didn't go to Jerusalem for this reason. This is just things that I had thought about. I'm putting it all together and just documenting it for you guys. I hope you enjoy this series. Again, I'm not saying for sure, 100% certain that Mount Zion is that area, but the more and more information, and I'm framing my information as if it were so, because again, I strongly believe that that above the city of David, where that is, that's the Fortress Antonia, and I believe, again, this is some physical evidence to support the footprint, the size, and everything else, that is Fortress Antonia. So I'm signing off from now. Hope you enjoy this video, and shalom.